Well, I'm now joined by Tom Mitchell from the Overseas Development Institute. He's the head of Climate and Environment Programme. Many thanks for coming on to us. We spoke to you on Friday where you described Philippines as one of the most well-prepared countries to face storms of this ilk. So what went wrong?
OK, well, it's absolutely right. The Philippines is one of the most prepared countries on Earth, but there are limits. There have to be limits for governments because it's really a balance of how much you can invest in protecting infrastructure, schools and hospitals. And sometimes simply the strength of the winds is just too high, and you have to just recognise in those situations it's down to the relief effort and it's down to the resilience of the people to get through it. So
would you echo some of what came out of those earlier packages, that the governments and the institutions on the ground are just overwhelmed by this storm?
Yeah, this region of the Philippines is just dotted with small islands, many of them quite densely populated, but in such instances like this, incredibly difficult to get to and really assess what's going on the ground. I think what we've seen, as the reports have said, is that you've seen these tsunami-like waves very much generated by the storm surges associated with the typhoon that have impacted some of those coastal settlements and Tacloban city, really in such a way that we've rarely seen in such instances.
And difficult also to gather the necessary information to really assess the situation on the ground, particularly from those very remote, hard-to-reach areas of the Philippines.
Yeah, and so the relief teams will be conducting what we call post-disaster needs assessment. What really is the scale of this problem and what is needed. Certainly we're hearing that there are shortages of food and water, no power, communications are incredibly difficult, transport is very tough. And so in those instances it's going to take quite a long while for us to really get a sense of the full toll of this terrible event.
So what is it that the people affected by this need? Is it international aid?
So the Philippines government, does have resources. We've seen from the reports that the military are there on the ground, but they'll be very welcoming of international assistance, particularly helicopters, resources, financial resources to keep the effort going as much as possible. We have to remember that the people who've been most affected here are going to want to know where their next meal's coming from, but they're also going to want to know where their next paycheck's coming from. Where are they going to get income? Where are they going to find a way to get back on their feet? Now, there will be some government help for that, but we've got to think about the way in which the long-term recovery is going to happen.
Hence, I suppose, the reports now of widespread looting in areas like Tacloban.
Yeah, I think we have to be careful about what we mean by looting in these instances. Often you think about paper headlines that this is a kind of major criminal activity. I think we've got to be quite careful because this is a situation where people are incredibly desperate.
People desperate for food.
Desperate for food. And if you see food in the supermarket and you can get it, what are you going to do? You're going to go and get that food and feed your family, and that's what we're seeing. So we need to be just a little bit careful about how we characterise this.
Very briefly, Tom, I just want to ask you about Vietnam. That's where the storm's heading. Very quickly, how well prepared do you think they are?
OK, Vietnam is a country that's had a lot of experience of typhoons. The storm has weakened quite considerably as it's come towards the coast of Vietnam, and we've seen quite a change of track. That change of track has led to lower wind speeds, actually. So my expectation is that Vietnam is going to be really, able to handle this.
OK, Tom, many thanks. Tom Mitchell there from Overseas Development Institute. You're watching BBC World News.